everybody. Thank you very much for tuning in with another episode with the Comic Menu with your co-host Dell and your co-host Caesar. So pretty much
Oh,
today we're gonna talk about real quick before you say anything. Hi Angela, we're just talking about you. I have a question for y'all.
yeah.
We're gonna have Chance and Kate. Thank you for tuning in already. We are gonna go over a couple of horror stories with some of our patrons in the background. If you all have any horror stories and you want to jump in, let us know. Throw you the link real quick, talk about it, and then give you the boot.
Mhm.
I'm just kidding. We'll just talk about it a little bit, see what we can do, and see what it was because we have a few. I have one or maybe two, and then we have Mandy, one of our regulars. Obviously, she has a lot because her life is
Because
spontaneous.
she's, because she's manly.
Because she's mad. No, because she's Wiggles Mittens. That's what she is.
Listen.
Get it straight, Caesar. Disrespect. And then we have a friend of Caesar's. Want to
Yeah.
introduce Caesar?
Yeah, Adriana, I've known since she was a wee little acorn. She's
We.
a family friend, and now she's all grown up and an adult, and she's into this whole paranormal stuff. And she also has a few stories up her alley. So I'm looking forward to hearing every individual stories. Kate, how are you, my friend? So, like Dale mentioned, it's going to be an open mic night. So, anyone that comments who has a real story, by all means, hit up me or Dale. We'll send you the link to jump on, tell your story, then get the fuck out. Simple as that. You don't have to stick around. Just tell your story and bounce. Um, we all know it's about that time, right? Halloween, I believe, is, I'm going to say all of our, at least my favorite holiday. It's kind of funny we say holiday because no one takes it off, no one gets it off, no one. But I guess it kind of is a holiday, right? I mean, it's why not?
Yeah.
This is the best time. Everyone likes spooky stuff, even the people who don't like scary stuff, they still like Halloween because it's. I'm not a big scary guy. I like scary movies. I don't like slasher movies. They're two different types.
Hmm.
Because people will consider a Saw a scary movie, but it's more of a hack and slash than it is scary. To me, it's suspense, spooky, the
Hmm.
stuff. I always use The Conjuring, the first one, as that category
Yeah.
because when you watch a movie and you get those hairs on your arm that stand
Hmm.
up and you kind of like, and it traumatizes you for a while, like you can't go to the basement with the lights off and all that kind of bullshit, then you know it's a
Hmm.
good movie. Hack and slash shit, nah, it's just
Not
gore.
this
It's becomes kind of comical, too much blood and all that stuff. So we are looking forward to having a good time with you guys. We're gonna spook each other out. That's why I have a little dim in here. I gotta play the mood. Dale, I just found out Dale apparently has stories from his work now, and I was like, "But isn't it a new building?" He's like, "Yeah, but it's built on a." I'm like, "Oh fuck now." That's all you have to tell people. Oh, my house was built 2017, but it's really built on this old ancient burial ground. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
So I think I had to know the least scariest. I want to go first. So this happened about a month and a half ago, and if I can, I wish I could tag my coworkers, and they can like verify with me, because every morning we open by ourselves. Let me see, Amber, let me text. I'm not sure. Caesar takes the mask off Halloween Eve for a couple of weeks.
that's nice. That's nice, Alex. You
Damn.
son of a bitch.
Uh, so
Son of a bitch.
we open by ourselves sometimes, and then it was on a Saturday, and I opened by myself in the morning. I got everything ready, and I got a couple of cars in. Like, all right, I'm by myself. I'm gonna start, serving whatever. And out of nowhere, as I'm giving like a blended drink to a customer, I look to my left, and there's this lady walking up right in front of the customer or the drive-through, and she's like on the side, and she's talking to the customer. So she said, "Can you help me? Call the cops." That's what she said, and that's what I heard, right? And I had a car right behind her, so I gave this drink to the lady. Boom, boom. She paid. She left. I got let me help this lady real quick so I could see what's going on. I did, and as soon as I was able to, like, 'cause I'm trying to keep a look for her, like I couldn't see her. I looked. again, check this here. I walked out by myself, went around, a couple of like maybe half a block, in every direction. I couldn't find her. I'm like, I put in the group chat, hey, this is what happened, and blah blah blah. This is kind of scary. And the next person's supposed to come in like in 10 minutes. Hey, get here earlier. You know what I mean? Get here now, just in case. And she gets there. We talk about it, and later that day, we have cameras. I talked to the main manager, and he was like, "Hey, this is what happened." He pulls up the cameras, right? He sends me the video, and he shouldn't have, because he sent me the video. We see her walk up, and we never see her leave. We have two cameras facing this way, so we have to see her. Either she walked directly straight to the road and to like the opposite way. There's nothing on the opposite side, literally nothing, or she just disappeared, or the customer picked her up. Those are the three options. Either it's a ghost, it was the customer was being nice and picked her up and took her somewhere, or this girl just walked direct, it's like a straight shot where we couldn't see her. Like there was no reason for her to walk that way, obviously. So it's either she was a ghost or the customer picked her up, and I never found out what happened after that.
What was well, get context of like where you work, because I know it that, like
Oh,
I said, your building's new. It's a new building, so it's not, you know.
so I work at a coffee shop, but in that coffee shop, we've already had noises and different things fall down, like weird shit. We've always just like let it go. And literally, it was 5 o'clock in the morning, giving the drinks to the first customers. Like there should be anybody out there at that time, unless they're drunk or whatever. But this chick, like literally, was barefooted. I just remember it's all black, not a dress, but it's like she had like a tank top and some shorts, and she just walked up to the customer as I'm giving the customer the drink, and like after that, like I never saw her again. Like it just never, it hasn't happened to me again, ever again. But there was like that one incident. It was just weird. Maybe I'm overthinking it. I mean, that's obviously a big thing, right? I could probably be overthinking it, but that happened to me. That was my main thing. 'Cause I had like little things happen here and there, but that would kind of creep me out. And we still have the video. I still have the video. Maybe I can upload it so y'all can see it. But it's
Old woman, older woman,
I want
middle
to say
age.
she's like Mandy's age.
So
What's
she's
that
about
supposed to be?
Because I know your age, Mandy, but you look younger than what you are. But your age.
I'm not one of those women who's ashamed of my age. Almost 40.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like, shit. Maybe I could have said it something simpler, right? But
It's okay.
but yeah, that was my little story. I mean, it was something simple as I wanted to get out of the way. But if you want to bring up Adriana next, and you want to go ahead, like, I know you have a couple. You want to first say your first one. I'll
I
switch it
can't
to
wait to hear.
Mandy, and then Caesar. Do you have one, Caesar, by any chance?
I have tons, but I have to like condense them in my mind because they're
Wow.
like
That's what mine
it's
are.
like a story. It's like a story,
Right.
and I'm trying to like do the clip notes in my mind of make it shorter and sweet. So
Oh,
Hey,
let the ladies go. Let the ladies go. Adriana, go ahead and first of all, like where the location was and all that good stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if it's too long of a story, but I'll try to be as detailed as possible. Um, I was in a acting school, so we practiced like scripts and writing and like theater and had showcases, and so we were rehearsing for a show, and I think everyone has a story and everyone thinks it's haunted. They agree. And the backstage was really small, this room. And I would have been in high school. But I had been going there since middle school, and I always felt that it was weird. And I also would be like one of the only people there a lot of the time, and just hear, like, it would sound like someone, it was like the same thing. Like someone would be trying to get into the bathroom, trying to open the door, knock on the door. And everyone had like a similar story like that. And so this particular day I was rehearsing, we went backstage, it was 3 of us, and I had to use the bathroom backstage, and the bathroom, like, it doesn't lock very well. But whatever. So like I thought they were waiting for me, and So like I'm done using the bathroom and then I hear like someone messing with the door, and I thought it was one of them, like my two friends that were waiting for me, trying to get in. And so like I try to open the door, and there's pressure on the door, so I can't open it. So again, I'm like oblivious, and I'm thinking it's my friend playing a joke. I'm like, haha, like let me out, like I need to get out. And I hear a mumbling like in a deep voice, but I can't decipher what they're saying. And I'm like, okay, like let me out. And so I finally get out, and the backstage, all the lights are off. And like previously, like when I walked in, the lights, it was just like normal, all the lights were on. So outside of the bathroom, it's just pitch black and nobody's there. So then I go, like, turn the light on, go down the hallway, and then find them in the next room. And I was so confused. I was like, were you guys just, like, there's no way, like, you could have been messing with me, right? Like, what just happened? So it wasn't scary. I was just confused by the situation.
But is it an old building? Do you know?
Yeah, it's an old building. It's in North Hollywood. I guess I should have mentioned that. Yeah, it's an acting studio in North Hollywood. Yeah. So that area,
Lots of history there.
mhm.
Believe it or not, North Hollywood, for those, I mean, I lived there for many years, but North
Oh, yeah.
Hollywood is a place, it's the same city that, sounds kind of modern, but the same city that Hervé from Tattoo, he actually lived there and he shot himself in that city, in his own home.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I can imagine anyone who bought that house. There's something about us freaking ourselves out. We do that all the time, right? Whether it's home alone and you're the only one alone, and the house does settle no matter where you live. The house always settles, but your mind, the first thing your mind does is, what the fuck is that? And you might hear it all the time, but you still go, and it takes a while for your mind to kind of go, oh, okay, it's just a house. But it's human nature for us to really freak ourselves out. And part of me thinks that we do it on purpose because we kind of like that adrenaline rush that goes through us when we're like, oh my gosh, what is that? What was that sound? Who's there? Right. So speaking of houses, Mandy, I know you said you live in a haunted house, right?
I did. So I'm gonna try to condense this down. It was 8 years worth of crazy in one. And it's so funny what you were just saying, because I totally agree with it now. But what happened to me, I was only 10 years old, and there was a lot of denial in my family, to include myself. Like, the perspective was, that was weird. What was that? That's odd. But it was never, there was no reference to ghosts in our house, like, until after we left. So it's so interesting. Maybe it's an age thing or whatever your kind of preview to, but ghosts were never discussed in front of me. I think the best reference I had was Casper the Friendly Ghost cartoon and Beetlejuice, the people in the sheets. And none of that stuff happened. There was no cute boy ghosts in my house. It was very disappointing. So the backstory is basically we lived in Hawaii. Both my parents had gotten jobs in Washington State. They ended up moving into a Victorian house that was built in 1904. And it was the very first house built in a place called Grace Harbor County. It's where Kurt Cobain's from. Basically, it was the very first house, and there was nothing but tents all around it. We found that out later after my mom bought it when she went to go sign a permit at City Hall. And she was like, that's interesting. And the lady who worked at City Hall was like, oh, yeah, you know, your house is haunted, right? And this was weeks after we had already started experiencing
Of
stuff.
course.
So my mom was like, that's why I got a spanking deal on it. Makes sense.
Right?
Leave it to the out of towners to not know. The entire city, are like, everybody would come up to our house. They're like, can we come in? Like, can we walk through like it was a haunted house? Because there was nothing but 100 years worth of stories. And we didn't know any better. So my mom was a contractor, started renovating really quickly, and so did the weird activity.
So, so for many people who don't know, very many haunted houses get stirred up
Yes.
when you work on the house, right? So if it's a past owner or what, they hate for you to mess around with the house. That's a house either they
Mhm.
built or they've lived in, and all of a sudden this new owner comes and don't and quote me if I'm saying this wrong, Mandy, knocking down walls,
Exactly.
adding rooms,
Yep.
tearing up floors, and they're like,
Yep.
"What are you doing to this beautiful home?" Right?
Exactly. And the initial renovations were necessary because the house was so old, it was on a tilt. So my mom was just correcting floors. She wasn't doing anything crazy, but it definitely kind of popped off at that moment. Again, my brother and I were very young. He was younger than me, and so I would say the weird things on that happened on a daily basis for us, that was more annoying. Maybe some people would get scared. For us, it was just like, oh, not again. Um, Stereos and TVs would go off by themselves on full blast volume without battery backups. And over time, we just started unplugging everything and they still would go off by themselves with no electrical. So that was pretty annoying.
Yeah.
So that's curious, like what Billy said too, that you got a voice
Yeah.
message from a ghost years ago. Are very true and wild story. Ghosts are real.
That's so
Billy,
scary.
Billy,
To
if
me.
you're up for it, Billy, if you didn't know, but we're doing like an open mic night. So, Billy, if you want to tell us that story, then bounce. By all
Yeah.
means, let us know. We'll send you the link because I would actually like to hear that. I never heard of
Me
a
too.
ghost voice message. That's 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 kind of eerie, actually. Just
Have
It's
y'all ever
really
like?
creepy.
Have y'all ever seen the Ghost Hunters?
Yes.
oh yeah,
On
all of
Since
it.
day
and
Yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah.
I mean the
Day
old
one, that's
stuff.
it.
I'm really into. So okay, I'll send it.
Yeah,
But like the
cool, Billy.
new stuff, I'm not really into. But the older stuff is pretty
Yeah.
solid. Like I used to have like the DVD and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Whether you believe or not, right? We always talk about this. Tons of skeptics, and even if it does happen to them, in other words, if they experience something, they will still try to find a way to debunk it, which I get it, because it's
Mhm.
very hard for them to go, you know, there has to be a scientific explanation of why
Mhm.
that door just opened by itself.
Exactly.
But when you really think about it, if a door unlatches, because you can hear the click click,
Uh-huh. It
how
defies
does that,
physics. It
it
doesn't make
defies
sense.
physics. How does a door unlatch itself? Especially the old doors, they have an actual latch that you actually remove.
Uh-huh.
It it just well, maybe it's because it was already kind of half open. I just walked on a certain plank, and the plank activated the door, and it unlatched. And
Caesar, can you send the link to Billy? I'm having issues right now.
I have a little story, a memorable story that actually has to do with the door.
Okay,
yeah, because
we'll
If you guys are okay
go ahead
for
and
me
get
to share.
go with Mandy, and then we'll go to John. I know she has another one too.
Yeah, I want to hear. I can't wait. So, my sister and I shared a room. My parents were really sweet and gave us the big bedroom, and directly across happened to be our bathroom. And it was late at night. Everybody all share the rooms were all very in close proximity in the upstairs, and everyone had already gone to bed. And the house was very creaky, so you could just hear everything. And we were used to that. Nothing that didn't scare us because that was pretty normal. It's an old house. But in old houses, a lot of times, especially with original doors, there will be like a 1.5 to 2 inch gap underneath the door that you can see right under.
Mhm.
And it had like all the original everything in this house. So we could always see if the door was closed, we could see whoever was walking on, in the hallway or whatever. So we're chatting it up. We hear heavy boots. No one in my family wears heavy boots. We came from a sneaker family, so we're like, that's really weird. Our door is closed. We look underneath and we both are like, yeah, those are boots. And then it stops in front of our room. We think there's an intruder. So instantly panicking, we dialed, we had a second line in the house. This is going to age me, but we called the home line, the landline. There were no cell phones at this point. So we called my mom in the other room because we were too scared to open our door, thinking there's an intruder, to be safe. And we call her. She gets up immediately because she's a badass, and she's like, I'm going to confront it. And all of a sudden we hear the bathroom door slam shut, and we hear the boots go in there. And we're like, whoever it is, they just went into the bathroom. Her hand's on the doorknob. We're behind her hiding. And all of a sudden we hear this loud, kind of like an explosion of something. It wasn't, it was like someone threw something. And she opens the door. There's nobody in there. And a makeup bag that I had put in a locked, latched Victorian cabinet, which was kind of a pain to open, had flown 12 feet across the room and exploded all over the wall, makeup everywhere. And that's what we had heard. And we were like, how could that even be possible?
Are we talking like heavy boots?
Heavy boots. Because we had all original hardwood flooring. And so you could hear every little creak. And we saw it underneath so we were like, we're on the second floor. There's no way out. So it was wild. We were really expecting, and we had 911 on speed dial because we were expecting there to be a man.
I know that we have Billy up next, but
yes.
Question, Mandy, did you find out the actual history of the house at one point?
Yeah.
You did?
So
okay. Well, hold on.
Go into that after. Yeah.
Right. I was gonna say let's wait for that. Yeah. Because I want to hear this ghost message from Billy. So hey Billy, how you doing, man?
All right. Long time ago. Yeah. All right. So little backstory first. My friend throughout grade school, high school, his parents bought an old house, like an old Victorian, like several 100-year-old house that they completely remodeled and did everything. Where we initially got exposed to a haunting, if you will say, right? All the little things, as Mandy was just saying, right? Posters ripping off walls, different creaks throughout the night. This had this weird third floor attic where it was super hot for any sort of paranormal activity. You could just feel the cold air at times when you were up there. Turns out that the old house was like a Civil War house, like literally something that they would use to quarter troops at during the wars. So it had tons and tons of history. So anyway, going to the ghost message. I was probably 16, 17 years old or so, early days of cell phone usage. But as always, whenever you get a notification, like you typically get a call first, and then you get a notification that you have a voicemail. I didn't get any of that kind of stuff, right? So I just got at like 2 o'clock in the morning or so, a voice message just appeared. I had perfect service, all that stuff, so there was no reason to not get a call. And the next morning, listened to the message, saw at like 2 a.m., I got a voicemail. Hold on, my dog's trying to break into my room here. Go lay down.
There's your dog is not a ghost.
You might be a ghost dog. But anyway, listen to the message, and it's like this weird staticky type sound that I can't really hear anything. it almost sounded like water running in a bathtub, right? But over a speaker. So I have this weird watery sound coming in, and I could hear this muddled kind of like voice, super raspy, saying, "Just help me," but it's just super, super muddled and drawn. Help me, kind of type of voice. So I'm thinking, all right, someone's playing a joke, whatever, wrong number, some bullshit, didn't think twice of it. Later that week, I go to my friend's house, and the haunted house. So we start talking about it. It's like, man, look, I got this crazy voicemail, no missed numbers, no missed calls. And his mom happened to be sitting there. And I explained the whole message, what it was, what it sounded like. And she's like, when did this happen? And I said, like, 2 a.m. on whatever day it was. And she went stark white, like completely baffled by this. And she's like, at exactly that time, on that day, I was having a dream that someone was drowning me in my bathtub. And that she literally woke up with like red marks on her neck, screaming, not being able to breathe, saying, I swear to God that someone was drowning me. And it was the most visceral, real dream that I ever had. And it was exactly that day at exactly that time, because when she woke up, she looked at the clock, and it was chilling. All of us stood there in complete stunned silence because I could still play the message. I had the voicemail. And it was just a weird, creepy, crazy situation that still haunts me to this day. It was so wild.
Billy, I'm not going to lie. You just gave me fucking goosebumps.
Yeah,
Dude, it was fucking crazy, man. Absolutely crazy. We still talk about that 20 years later now.
You know what the funny thing is? We always do this. It's one thing when you have a ghost story or something happened to you. When you have witnesses, meaning if it happens to a group of you or someone who can validate what you saw, it puts the creep factor even on a higher level because you know your facts. It's not you, right? It's like I'm the only one that saw that. I can't explain it. I'm just telling you based on me. People are like, oh, fuck you, you're full of this. But when you look over next to you and the guy's like, I was there, man.
Yeah.
I saw the same thing too. It changes everything.
Yeah.
Because everyone's level of skepticism is different. How they logically go through things, and what's rational to them is not rational to somebody else. So when you have a group of people all see the same thing, it's hard to deny.
But we tried some rational explanation to that for months and years, and it's just how does something get put onto a voicemail with no call that just so happens to coincide with that dream inside of a house that we believe to have been haunted? It was just, there was no reasonable explanation.
That's
where was this at, Billy? Where was this at exactly?
Pittston, Pennsylvania.
Oh, there's a lot of history.
There's a lot of war history in Pennsylvania. Yep.
A little bit. It's been around for a little bit.
A little while.
Billy, thanks, man. I appreciate you jumping on.
Absolutely, man. Glad to share a story.
Crazy.
So far, you're here, man.
Thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Who's next?
We're gonna find out.
Adriana.
Yeah. But let's read a few of these comments. These people are crazy.
Yeah. I'm reading them right now.
We have an entire town square here that is haunted by a murdered Union soldier, the old whorehouse, and the old jail in the basement of the courthouse.
Wow.
The whole whorehouse thing probably doesn't sound too bad. Then there's this one right here, Mr. K at the Prairie Meadows. Shout out to our old folks over there.
We love you guys.
If you go trick-or-treating on Checker Drive in San Antonio, you'll meet a friendly old man who is always watching the kids. He helps them cross the street. He's Mr. Ani B. Williams, who died 10/31/1969.
Wow.
Mrs. C says, I was a little girl when a tornado hit my home in the middle of the night. I remember the old woman grabbing my hand and my sister's. She dragged us not to the cellar, but the barn. When our parents got home, the entire house was gone, but the barn was undamaged.
Wow.
We still don't know who or what the old lady was.
That's like a guardian angel. Like, wow.
Oh, that's a whole different situation.
Wow.
Oh man,
Unbelievable.
that's some good stuff, man. I think
Yeah.
Billy kind of set the tone. I'm not gonna lie, I got some fucking goosebumps when Billy says he
Right?
said I had a dream that someone was drowning me. I'm like,
Yeah.
I think Billy's passed
I
out.
had just like chills going up and down my back. Like, you know, when your eyes water, but you're not crying, you're just like
Yeah, I
kind of
know.
in shock
I
when you
started
hear
getting
something
there.
creepy. Yeah.
I started getting there. Adriana, what else you got?
I don't have much more. I just feel like my old house in Huntington Beach was haunted on the Native American burial grounds.
My
And
brother was there. Oh
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, and the street was Algonquin, which is the name of the tribe. And then the wetlands are right there, which is like this swampy area that you can go hiking in that's right next to the beach. And there are rumors that you can see like a little boy like running around there at night. And when I was walking around there at night, I didn't see the little boy, but I did hear laughing. And me and my friend both saw the same thing where we saw like shadows like moving like this, like orbs. And it was night. Like usually, like I do see a lot of like colors and orbs, but it's mostly like during the day. So the fact that both of us saw that at night was pretty weird. And then my house, my ex-boyfriend told me he saw a ghost in the house, like going down the stairs. So that was like an indirect account. But he said he saw an old woman like go down. There's like a spiral staircase up to this loft, and also my dog would bark at like certain areas of the house, like at nothing. At this balcony that we had, like it would bark and it pitch black at night, and it just gave this feeling of creepiness.
That's the other thing. Pets are when pets are very intuitive because they see things and they hear things that humans that us humans cannot. So don't ever just. Now I'm not saying it's everything supernatural, but don't ever discount if you see a dog barking at midair at a corner. I had a story. You know, a story's good that when you're about to recount it, you start getting goosebumps.
Yeah.
I had a friend who lived in Carson, California, who the house, no bueno, 2-story house, was not a good house at all. You just felt it. And one time I was watching TV in their house, and she had a son and a Rottweiler, and for some odd reason, they were both staring at the black room where his grandparents were. And we're still around. You know, the grandparents weren't there or anything, but that's where they slept. They slept, and they were staring at a dark room. Dark room, nothing else in there. And he's standing next to the dog, and the kid is about 5, and the Rottweiler is standing next to each other, and they're looking at this dark room, and they're both doing this. They're tilting their head back and forth. And now I look behind me, I'm like, what the fuck are we looking at? Right? This is a house where a friend of theirs was murdered outside their house. In their car. Ironically, it happened the night we dropped off our friends, and about an hour later, her sister came home with her friend, dropped off her sister, coming back from a party, and a guy came out of the bushes who was basically the friend's estranged husband who was wearing an ankle bracelet, walked up to her and shot her in the head and killed her in front of the house. And my friend's sister played dead on the passenger seat, so she slumped over. And they heard the friend who we just dropped off at the house came out running because she heard the gunshot, and the guy who shot her ran past her because he started running. And they did this. This asshole did this to his estranged wife with their son asleep in the backseat of the car.
Oh.
So, needless to say, years later, we were sitting on her front porch of this house. And I was talking to my ex-wife, which I will call Voldemort because that's what I name her. Because we don't mention her name. Voldemort was standing here, and my friend was sitting. I was sitting on the couch. And we're like, "Hey, let's go out. Let's go do something." And then all of a sudden, out of my corner of my eye, I see a black shadow run across on the street. So there was a fence. It's on the sidewalk. It's just a black shadow.
Wow.
And she lives in a cul-de-sac. So there's no light. You would have to have a car come by and headlights. So I looked and I kind of shrugged it off. I kind of went like whatever. My friend looks at me and says, "You saw that, didn't you?"
Oh my God.
And I said, "Don't tell me you saw that." And then Voldemort's like, "I saw the same thing." So the shadow looked like, and it sounds kind of cliche, but remember the shadow people and ghosts?
Yeah. Yeah.
The ones who, remember the suck they hid down to hell?
Oh yeah.
It was like that. It was like this triangle shape just quickly moved. And I'm going, is that like a replay of what happened?
Right.
You know what I mean? So there's other stuff going on in that house where she lived. She lived in the top floor with her kids and her husband. Always would fall asleep on the couch downstairs. She would hear the creaking of the footsteps going up, and no one ever opens the door. She once felt as she was sleeping, someone pull her ponytail because she would put her hair in pigtails.
Wow.
She heard a whisper that said, and it yanked on her ponytail.
Nope.
And then to top it all off, rubber balls that when you bounced it
Oh no.
in the middle of the room starts glowing by itself. No one's bouncing it to activate it, glowing where it almost lit up the whole room and then stopped.
Oh.
Damn.
I think she still lives in the house.
I'm a firm believer in that trauma like that in a environment, it kind of like burns itself, almost like a photograph. I really do think that even if it wasn't, say, her, but the trauma of something that terrible happening, I feel like it can burn itself into an environment, and there could be like residual.
So something like related but not related, like in a smaller downtone version. Like when you watch a scary movie or like a really movie that scares the shit out of you, and you're by yourself in the corner, right, or whatever you're doing, after you watch that movie, I have the tendency to question every dark corner, right? So I walk backwards, I turn on the lights, I'll keep the lights on for that night. Like I'll do anything in my power to make sure my back has light. I think what movie was it? It was something with the Tooth Fairy, right? And if you're light, you're good. So ever since then, I reverse, make sure there was light in front of me, behind me, on my phone, I had the flash. Like, dude, I wasn't a big scary movie person until like
Those
I met my
induce
wife.
paranoia for sure.
And it's totally something. It's because I am like I'm still scared of fucking Chucky. I'm still scared of Leprechaun. Like in my head, I always like replay.
You
Like,
both.
that
It's the
fucker
little
comes,
things.
it's the little people.
Yeah.
He doesn't like little people.
Yeah.
I mean, and these little shits get it from me. I always like, I'm gonna drop kick them. I'm gonna do a field goal, whatever. But and then in reality, I'm like, I'm probably gonna die. But I'm gonna do my best not to. Like I learned from the movies. I don't know, man. It's
Don't ever meet these two girls, Dale, because they're both like 4
I
feet.
know. What's your? Whoa, no. Ariana, how tall are you?
Like 5 feet.
Oh, that's close.
What are you, Mandy? Like 4'11"?
I look like it. No, I'm 5'3", but I'm shrinking.
Oh,
Okay, that's good.
this guy called her 4'11". That's an inch
I-
away from calling her a little person. You know that, right?
Well, I really was hoping it was going to be like 4'9", so I could get that good government assistance and all the fun toys, but not quite. I didn't get there. I was really disappointed.
What? Ted?
What does
Is
it say?
that true?
My wife has to
Is
sleep with the light on, which means I don't go to
Ooh.
sleep.
Is it
That's
after a
wrong.
movie or like in general? That's my question. And
Yeah, that's
Angela,
wrong.
real
Yeah,
quick,
you
I was in San Antonio this weekend. And I forgot.
Oh.
Y'all are in Floresville, aren't you? So I should have passed by and said hi to them. And I mean, y'all are only a few hours away from me. If you were the one in Floresville, I know there's a pyramid.
Oh, yes. The good old railroad crossing. So here we have the railroad crossing where some children were killed by a train when the bus stalled. That section of railroad track that is on an incline if you park your front. Now, Mr. H, believe it or not, believe it or not, that has been debunked.
No, it hasn't.
Now, I don't know about the tiny hands, because people say if you put down on the bumper, you see tiny little hands of the children pushing the car up and
Because
over
what
the
you're
track.
saying, Caesar, is that I know what the video where they put it there and then
Yeah.
so it slowly goes because of whatever the angle is. But
Yeah.
they've done it where they pushed it back and it got pushed. Like there was no way for it to go forward because it wasn't like this anymore. It was like in a straight, and it still got pushed. So you got the debunk got
Yes.
debunked again.
Yes, Ted. Prairie Meadows is in Prairie Meadows, Texas. So lately, all they talk about is something that happened either in San Antonio or someplace. Children will push that over the track. Yep.
That's
Yep,
been well
exactly.
documented for years. I mean, like older. I know it's older than me, and I'm 36. So
Yeah, because you're ancient.
oh,
This is the thing. We haven't even talked about lore, right? Lore for me is, there is truth in everything. Things might be embellished, and throughout the years, they keep adding and adding more and more stories to a story. But it all comes down to an actual fact of history that actually happened. For many of you who do not know the Llorona is the Latin, Hispanic, more Mexican for me, and Del, it is our boogeyman. The story of the Llorona is
I can't hear you.
I can't hear you.
Okay, I thought it was just me. I'm like, maybe my system went down.
What the hell
no.
goes?
Caesar.
Caesar, your shit just. That's what happened when you make fun of Chris.
We can't hear.
Crazy.
No.
So, anyways, let me continue what he was saying. This lore has been part of our livelihoods for years. I mean, I want to say centuries, right? I want to say this was back like 1800s kind of story. And I got you, Caesar. Keep on trying to work it out because, and it's funny because Caesar got a new system and
I know,
new
it's
stuff.
working great.
It's creepy.
It's creepy that it stopped working as he was discussing what it is.
Yeah.
Like that, the timing of that was weird.
It was right. Don't be talking about those kids. Don't be talking about the Llorona. What's wrong with you? But the one, okay, I'm gonna let him talk about Llorona because he was into it. The one I wanted to talk about that scared me when I was younger was the chupacabra.
Oh, me too.
Dude, I remember I used to be a migrant while I would go to Michigan to go and work in the fields, right? And I remember always that's when I would hear these stories about the chupacabra killing these goats, sucking the blood. And I'm in my head like I'm in Michigan, I'm safe. They gotta go through a lot of states before they get to me. So like in my head, I'm just prepping myself like I ain't dying anytime soon. And but that thing has been like debunked and bunked, and then they see these creatures that are all weird. My wife actually has a lot of stories too. She's ready.
Did you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're back.
That's weird. It's kind of like The settings just this. I'm not gonna lie, people.
No, the timing was crazy.
The setting and the right on the setting on the StreamYard, Dale, switched over mics, just in the middle of it. I'm not fucking joking around.
I mean, obviously,
believe it.
your hands were here when you were talking, right? All of a sudden, you were like, just
As
How
soon
far
as
did
you
you?
were telling the story, it just cut out.
Yeah.
How? Wow.
Silence.
Okay, so where did I leave
All
off
right.
at the scorned woman?
Beginning.
At the scorned.
In the very beginning, we didn't even get to.
yeah.
You said
Oh.
you said the name, and then it just went out.
That much? Oh fuck.
Yeah.
All right. So, okay, the story of Llorona.
So crazy.
Long story short, woman had kids. She fell in love with the man they were going to be together forever, and I believe he was already married, or I forgot. These stories change, but anyways, he left, never came back. She was so scorned that she drowned her kids in the nearby lake or river or the water. And ever since then, she would wander the streets and she would scream, "Ah, mis hijos, my kids, my sons." And she would knock on your door and she would ask for her kids. So, as growing up, my parents, my mom mainly, because she's a bitch, she would be like, "Oh, you're not good. La Llorona's going to come and get you." And I'm like, "You son of a bitch."
That's
I
me.
was probably saying that at that young age. you know,
Why does
this guy wants me to already fucking Ted is always already buying my books. Sure, Ted, I'll let you know, man. You never know. But that was the thing. That was every country, every heritage has that story of that boogeyman. But it all does come from some
It's
truth.
from something.
Was there a woman who probably killed her kids? Yes, sure.
Mhm.
Was her ghost wandering around the streets looking for her children that she drowned?
Who's to
I
say?
don't know. Who's to say? But it sure works when your parents say, "If you're not behaving,
Yeah.
La Llorona is going to come and get you." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll eat my damn peas." You don't want, that's the last thing I want. And then, of course, they would always, my mom would make it worse by like, "She's got to grab your ankles and drag you." And I'm like, "Son of a bitch."
Oh my
Great.
god, that's so mean.
Thanks a lot, Mom. To this day, I can't let my ankles hang anywhere because
No,
La
me
Llorona's
neither.
gonna come. Screw that. All right. So
There's another one.
this who, where, what?
What?
Remember
Oh
that?
yeah,
Are
Doll
you
Oh my
Island.
god, Doll
Yes.
Island.
there's so
That-
many
My hell. Like
Yes.
that is
Now-
just nothing but dolls and spiders.
I have seen this Doll Island, not in person, but I have
On
seen
TV.
investigations at Doll Island,
Ooh,
and
It's terrifying.
I shit you not, people. Now listen to me very well. I shit you not. They have caught using infrared cameras, which turns
Mhm.
everything green. Fucking heads turning.
Uh-uh.
I saw it. I saw a blink. Heads turning. Noises being made like they're talking. These things have been sitting there for years with no batteries.
Terrifying.
It is no joke. Apparently, the story behind this, I actually know the story behind this, Dale.
Ooh.
A child drowned in that area, and there was a villager who could not save her.
Oh.
So he felt bad. And what he did was put up dolls in her memory, which
Oh.
just blew up. Just dolls everywhere. Dolls.
Because if you do the
and everyone-
history of dolls, of how they came about, like it has to do with souls. They're made so souls go into them as a
yeah.
post
What's up, Brian?
death
Yeah.
thing. Oh man.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
wow.
the guy. Listen, people. I don't have a problem with dolls. There's people who have a problem with dolls and clowns. I don't have a problem with them. You have a problem with both?
Yes.
Wait, you have a problem with dolls and clowns?
Yes, because
So if it's a
I
when I
would
was
move.
little, I got a doll clown and it moved on its own. It was one of those musical ones, and it was dead, and it started singing, and it had no
That's the same reason why I
capability.
never let my daughter have those porcelain dolls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah,
I remember
I
the
got
one
rid
time
of
my wife
them.
brought my daughter a porcelain doll. We got home, got it, and I yeeted it to the trash can.
I got a
True
really
story. My
expensive
daughter's
one.
here. My wife. I just fucking yeeted that shit. Like I ain't playing no games with no porcelain dolls. I'm a
Nope.
big man, but I am scared
Same.
of those little things.
I am too. It's terrifying.
Okay,
So Mandy, go ahead, Dale.
Yes.
Yeah, what are you gonna say?
no, go.
Okay, Mandy, go ahead, and I'm curious what this backstory is on this house that you lived in.
Um, so what we did a lot of digging, and the land was established. It was bought from Native Americans to white people. Um, in like
To white people.
1850, yeah, to white people, and they didn't get much for it. We'll just put it that way. Um, and this town now looks like Derry from it. Like it has the
Mhm.
train tracks, it has the water. Like it's very small population, like maybe 1700 when we moved in. Like not a lot of people. Um, and it was just one of those places you just rode your bikes everywhere until it was dark. But a lot of people died on those train tracks, so that was something. It also had a logging or a pulp mill, and a lot of people died there. There's just a lot of history. But 1852, the land was basically, bought, and then they established it as a city in 1891. And then our house was the first house mansion built in 1904. And then everything else was squalor for a while.
Tell everybody what you told me about. You're the only family who lived there the longest.
Yeah, so we found out from I had a fifth grade teacher who was awesome, and I remember one day seeing a house on her desk, and I was like, "That looks like my house." And she's like, "I actually used to live in your house. I had this replicated when we moved, and we rebuilt the same Victorian model because we loved it so much." But and I said, "That's interesting. Why did you move?" Because this was about 2 years after we had lived there, and a lot of things happened, and she instantly dropped the subject and she never wanted to speak about it again.
Oh, yeah, those old
Um,
Victorian are nice and pretty, but there's always history to them. Like I
well,
found.
and
What?
oh god, no, tell me.
No, the only
What were you
reason I
gonna
was to
say?
bring it up because I remember there was a documentary about Lizzie Borden, the
Uh-huh.
one where she got acquitted, right? But
Yeah.
she killed her dad and her stepmom, and it was an
Hmm.
old Victorian house as
Oh,
well.
yep.
So I'm like, that shit, like, yeah, it looks pretty on the outside, but there's always history in all those
So
fucking
great.
places. I don't want to, like, oh,
And this house had
Mike,
like original like crystal chandeliers, original doors,
wow.
original floors, original doorknobs, like
I,
everything.
I I can't imagine how much your mom even paid for that at that time. You know.
I could tell you, and it's wild. Like
how much?
$35,000 for almost like 4,000 square feet.
Well, probably
And
because
it
of the
took up
research.
half the block. Like it was huge.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was just the house. That wasn't even there. Used to be a carriage house on the back, on top of a garage, on top of the entire front yard. Like it was ginormous.
Is it still for sale?
Um, huh?
I,
It is. I think so. So what we found out was our family, other than the original owners, were the only, and there were several owners before and after us. We're the only ones who lasted as long. Everyone else, they were out within a year and a half, 2 years. They couldn't handle
is
it.
is the house still there?
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's
Send me
still
some
there.
information later. I want
It
to visit.
is does not look like it did when my mom owned it. It was beautiful, and now it is sad to walk by that house. There's a lot of locals who won't even go in the yard because they all know it's that. To them, it's that haunted.
There's a lot of history here in New Mexico. Adriana lives about 30 minutes from me. in Albuquerque, and
Bless your
we
heart.
have tons of stuff because it's native
Native,
lands.
indigenous. Yeah.
There's pueblos everywhere around here.
Yeah.
If you could, I can't. I was going to tell you my story yet, but I'm going to read this real quick. We have the Ozark Howler. It's the
Ooh.
size of a black bear with shaggy hair, kind of like Dell, and huge horns.
Ooh.
First time
Many-
you got a good one.
Oh, many
Scott.
here believe it's actually the Sioux Sith or the Coo Sith from Scotland because if you hear it howling around your home. See, that's another thing too. There's a lot of places have their monsters, which
They're
I hate to say
cryptids.
it. Those cryptids. This is the funny thing about me. I believe in the supernatural, but I have a
Uh-huh.
hard time believing in cryptids. I don't know why. I just do.
Interesting.
Not saying that don't exist.
Right. Just skeptic.
I don't know. I'm just kind of skeptic about that stuff. Ghosts. Maybe because we have more and we have seen more captured, right?
Oh,
Stuff.
yeah.
My favorites are EVPs. So, in
Oh,
case for
yeah.
many of you who don't know what an EVP is, it's an electric voice phenomena. Those are the ones that people leave that you hear recording of. People go to cemeteries with the recorder and they ask questions. You wait a few seconds to see if you catch a response, and then you play it back. EVPs to me are probably one of the creepiest things
Oh yeah.
because it's the voice. It's the voice of someone who used to live, and
Especially
just
when you
really
can hear
weird.
cadence and tone and all that. It's wild.
Not only that, especially when they answer.
Yeah.
So that means it's an intelligent haunting. If they answer you back,
Right?
that's when you ask what's your name and you play it back and it's an actual name. That's some creepy ass shit.
No.
I-
You hear the name right, and then you Google it. I'm like, oh shit!
It's
not
someone.
even building, it's actually a real person.
Yes, exactly. As a matter of fact,
Wild.
I heard one once where these group of people were at a cemetery doing EVPs and doing a little haunting, ghost investigating, and the cops showed up to wondering what they're doing there,
Yeah.
and they caught on the EVP of a voice that said, "Busted."
That's
Come on, man.
awesome.
That's
That's
like I
awesome.
was like, get the fuck out of here. I mean, that's some intelligent shit. What's going on here? What Billy's saying? Google the Smurfs family haunted
I'm
house.
actually reading it right now. It's fucking good.
The
What?
house I talked about was right down the street from that place that made a movie
Oh,
about them.
man.
Interesting.
There's a lot of good shit right now as I'm reading.
There's go ahead, Del.
So Adriana, it's been a minute since I heard her talk. So before you said yours, Caesar, let's let her do
Yeah,
another
yeah.
story, and then just go Caesar.
I'm done. I'm done with my stories. You can
Oh,
go
you're
on.
done with the stories?
Well, yeah.
Well, she
too detailed.
the thing is, you would think, Adriana, where you grew up, because that house is very old, in your grandparents' house.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you guys never caught anything there, because she lived in a historic area in Los Angeles, where the house is from the 1920s.
Oh wow.
So I'm shocked. It's kind of funny. I'm shocked you never caught anything at that house, but
I
sometimes
felt-
wow.
I feel like I'm protected by like my family members that passed away or like angels. I really am a believer in that, and
Mhm.
so maybe I'm shielded from like more intense experiences, at least this far.
I love that. I was gonna say the same thing. I'm like, she's protected.
Not
We've
from
all
Caesar.
had, not me apparently. Well, the thing
from
is
you.
that you're funny. The funny thing is that I've had this story I'm about to tell you guys is from my cousin who lives in Mexico. And all this crazy shit always happens in Mexico.
It does.
So my family is from Hermosillo, Sonora, which is on the Arizona border. Hermosillo is the capital of Sonora, and it's a desert city. So my cousin, when he was younger, he was talking to his girlfriend back in the day when you had the phones on the walls with the fucking cord that goes about 4 miles long. You could walk around the whole house with it.
Mhm.
And he was talking to his girlfriend, and he saw these two ladies walk on the street, and there were, he lived in a place that had a fence, and you open the fence, you park your car, and you close the gate, and all that stuff. And he saw these two ladies walking, dressed in white. And I'm not kidding you guys. Walking on the street back and forth, and he sees them, and he tells his girlfriend, he goes, "You know what? I keep seeing these people, and I wonder if they need help." And then he sees them on the sidewalk, walking across the street, walking back and forth from him. And he tells his girlfriend, "You know what? I'm going to I'm going to call you back. I'm going to call you back. I think they're looking for something. I'm going to help them." So he goes up to the gate and he stops them. He says, "Can I help you guys?" And they said, this old lady walks up to him and says, "We're looking for someone." And he says, "Maybe I could help." He says, "I don't know where she lives. That's the thing. Do you know a name?" "No, I don't know a name, but she lives by the lavaderos." And back in the day, the lavaderos was a little stream where everyone would go and wash their clothes in the water, which is now down the street from where he lives is a basketball court.
Oh wow.
He did not know this, that it used to be a wash place. So he was like, "Well, if my parents come by and maybe they know, maybe help you out." She's like, "Okay, well, keep looking." And he noticed that the other lady never showed her face, but she was very crouched and almost hunched over. And so he says, "Oh, okay." And as she's walking away, she goes, "Well, there is one thing you could do for us." And he goes, "What's that?" She goes, "Pray for us."
Mm.
He's like, "Oh, okay." He goes, "Oh, by the way, where do you guys live?" She says, "We live by the Panteon," which is a cemetery in Spanish. He's like, "Okay, whatever. I'll pray for you." So he goes and he takes a shower. And as he's showering, he stops dead in his mid shower, wraps a towel around him, goes across the way, because his house and my grandparents' house shared the same backyard. So he ran across, walked into their house, went to their room, looked at a picture of my great grandmother and said, "I just spoke to that woman."
Oh.
So in his subconscious,
Yeah.
he's as he's showering, you know how that happens. Like later you start thinking about things. He's going like, where have I seen this woman?
Wow.
Where? Sure enough, he says, "I just spoke to that woman.
Wow.
She's been dead for God knows how long." And then we suspect that the other lady is my great aunt, who had severe arthritis, who always with her hands, and she was always hunched over. So my aunt, his mom, thought they were coming around looking for her to talk to her.
Wow.
So for every night, she would sit outside with the candle waiting, and they never came back. But she did pray for them every Sunday. She did a little special prayer for them. That's a different thing. When you actually have physical speaking contact with someone.
Yeah.
Say, for example, if Dell's thing was true or not true about if that person was alive or not alive,
Right.
to actually hear and speak and have a conversation for someone to say she died over 50 years ago.
That is crazy.
That's the creepy shit.
Yeah.
And the fact that it was my cousin. So when I told this story to my wife when we first got together, she didn't believe me. One day, my cousin was visiting, and I said, "Oh, by the way, here he is. Ask him yourself." He's like, "No, it happened." Then I kind of find out later that the house that I used to go and stay at every summer, they were seeing things in that house. My same cousin will be sitting watching TV, and he sees his mom go into her bedroom. He goes to the kitchen, she's in the kitchen. So he would see doppelgangers, which are not a good thing.
No, that's not good at all.
Doppelgangers are not good. hearing your voice, someone calling your name, and you're turning around and no one's there. Calling your name clear as day.
That happened. That was going to be my next story. We dealt with mimics in our house, a lot of them, daily. With witnesses, rooms filled with people.
Real quick, did you get the question that Angela said?
Yeah.
Do any of you know how come nursing homes, for the most part, are never haunted? That's a very good.
It's a very
That's
good
a very good point. Let me tell you what. Let me tell you what I think, Angela. Because you're in a place of peace. I'm not speaking for all of you guys, but you're there, and you're there. It's at peace. You have a routine. You have your friends. You talk to the same people over there. You may have already finished business. There's nothing to carry on and do, and you're just enjoying life. So
versus
I
like a
don't-
hospital that
versus
has,
a hospital has trauma.
yeah, and it's sudden
you know,
a lot of times.
There's something to say about. Now, trust me, I worked at a hospital in Los Angeles.
Ooh,
I
that's
worked at a hospital that oh
scary.
God, my God. In 2006, they opened a whole new hospital next to the old hospital, and they moved all these patients over. This is a hospital that was built in 1923. It was the first hospital in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys remember the General Hospital, the TV show,
It's based off of it.
the beginning, that's the hospital they used for the intro.
Yeah.
So the actual hospital, I used to go and visit. Beautiful, beautiful fresco intro. Everything was Art Deco, metal like eagles. The wood was pine, and just, I mean, you can imagine stuff that was made back in the 1920s.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? We had to go up there and remove phones and do all the stuff, all IT stuff.
Wow.
And I'm not fucking kidding you. Lights would turn on for a phone to be on.
Mm-hmm.
Like, like number 1 is on.
Right.
There's no one calling.
About that. I've heard
No one's calling. No one's picking up. No one's on the phone. No one's doing all that stuff. Elevators opening by themselves. So one day I said, I'm going to go up there by myself. No one with me. So I went up there by myself and went as high as I can in the building.
Mm-hmm.
And the garage and the elevator doors open. And I shit you not, my friends and family, the lights were like literally blinking in the hallway. I'm like, what is, it's like, and you look down the hallway and it's all pitch black except for a little light at the end where the exit door is at with the blinking lights.
No.
And I just walked that hall and just like, let's just see if I could feel anything. You look in the rooms, and once again, you think I'm making this shit up, but I'm not. Wheelchairs in the middle of the room, papers everywhere, stuff that you see in TV shows. They do that because when they move patients, they just leave everything.
Mm-hmm.
They are converting those into little offices. Until this year, I've never seen it before, but if you guys ever watch Ghost Adventures, they actually, for the first time ever, did a investigation at the LA Hospital Memorial.
So creepy too.
Well,
It's a
a
great
lot of people
episode.
Well, you know when those places are abandoned, there's a lot of people that go in there and like do their little research or whatever. You can see like it looks like people just got up and left everything there. So
Yeah,
I can just
do
imagine
that.
how it looks like The Walking Dead, pretty much. The
Yeah.
thing that like that looks creepy.
It's
But-
accurate. It really does look like what Caesar described. It's wild.
If you go on if you have Discovery, go and look at Ghost Adventures and look at the very last season. You're going to see hospital, Los Angeles Hospital. That's the hospital I'm talking
It's
about. exactly.
creepy. It's a great episode.
And they caught some good shit there. So
Yeah.
you saw that episode, Mandy?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, so that's this hospital I
remember.
went to. That's
It's
it.
wild. I've already
I-
heard stories about it from former people who have like either they were a patient or they work there in some capacity, and it's so creepy to me.
Well, then you start hearing stories: doctors being killed, patients coming
Yes.
back, murdering doctors, and all that stuff.
So
That's not.
dangerous.
It's dangerous.
Yeah.
It's in LA, you know.
Yeah.
That's right. Dale, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying. Angela said we crack the windows open so their spirits can leave with love. If you don't do
Aw.
that, they will haunt you. I witnessed this firsthand.
I've never heard this, and I love that. I love that they do that.
Yeah, Billy. It's kind of weird. I don't normally do that. I'm not one to want to go on a haunt, though.
I kind
How many of us would go to a cemetery at night?
I find it peaceful, personally.
Adriana, would you go at night by yourself?
No, I would 100% get chills the second.
The whole time, right?
Yeah.
I've
The whole
been
time.
in New Orleans, where there's obviously a lot of history, and it was pretty peaceful.
No,
Um,
What
I
you,
just-
Dad? Would you go?
maybe.
By myself, no. Not by myself. I would have to go with somebody like back to back. But in New
Yeah.
Orleans, isn't there like a museum, like Museum of the Dead? Or something like that?
I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'm sure
I'm pretty sure
they've had to uproot so many cemeteries that, I mean, you just walk by a field you think is a park, it's really a cemetery. Because they had like malaria and yellow fever and all these things prior to even the hurricanes.
So,
So-
Adriana, would you go into like a haunted house by yourself?
Not by myself. With someone, I would be way more willing to do it. But
Your claws would be so dug into their arm. Like if you go with your boyfriend, his arm would be so many Adriana marks by claws and white knuckle, because that's when you start freaking yourself out. See, this is the problem with haunted houses. If you go into a house knowing the history, you start to psychologically freak yourself out because you already know what's going on. So if you see something that's not really supernatural, you will right away claim it is because you know the history. Now, if you go into a house not knowing shit about shit, and you come out saying, I just saw a woman going into the bathroom and coming out, then people say, well, that's what people say they see all the time. It's a woman going into the bathroom coming out. Right?
Just kidding.
Yeah.
You know,
I'll take Schwartz.
yeah, there you go. Took out Satan with artillery. You know, so that's the thing about the mind. The mind is very powerful, and the mind could really fuck you up if you allow it to. But it's so human of us to freak ourselves out, and that's why a lot of times I don't want to know. Let me just go in there and see what I feel. Because what a coincidence if you go into a haunted house that's haunted and you don't know it's haunted, and you don't feel anything. Then people are like, "Oh, did you feel anything?" I'm like, "No, I didn't." Why should I? The place is haunted. Why? I didn't tell you because I didn't feel anything.
You know,
Well, Go ahead, Dan.
this Miguel right here. Like, there's a mummy museum in Mexico, and I'm looking at that creeps me out too. Like, there were once people, right, and now they're like right in front of me, like, just, Chupacabra. We talked about Chupacabra.
Yeah, chupacabra is el cucuy, right? Everyone knows el cucuy, the literally the Mexican boogeyman, La Llorona. Everybody has their spooky, be good or he's gonna come and get you at night.
Yeah. But you know how they say demons are like they're like dog-like, like and stuff like that. And I had sleep paralysis on my stomach one time. And I felt like this dog or something was like on top of me. So,
Is it like paralysis or something?
Yeah,
sleep paralysis. So I couldn't move, and I was on my stomach, so I couldn't see anything. And I was like clench my teeth. It was so weird, and I felt like there was like a dog on top of me.
Like sniffing you.
That's scary.
Yeah,
Like
I'll be
sniffing you,
kissing my
right?
ass because I'm shitting my fucking bricks.
That dog would leave because he would smell my shit coming out.
Yeah, I was like,
that's
no,
it.
that ain't happening.
I would shit the bed, 100%.
No, and then the another one that creeps me out are like the skinwalkers.
Oh,
I mean?
don't get me started. I got caves above my house.
Of what? Of what?
Skinwalkers.
Skinwalkers.
Oh, they're rampant here in New Mexico.
No,
That's what I'm
that's
saying.
not what I want to hear.
I don't want to hear that. I go, yeah, it's a true story.
What the hell? You're not gonna believe me if I see one. Caesar's gonna be like, "Nah, you didn't see that." Like, I guarantee.
I've seen some. Let's say alien abduction scared the ever loving shit out of me. Yeah, aliens is a whole different animal.
Different.
It's kind of funny. I don't consider aliens as supernatural. I don't put them in the
Because it
same
could be
category.
real. Like, there's more like if anything. There were the more real things that can actually happen. I don't know about
Uh,
abduction and putting stuff over your butt, but they will, there's
Leave me alone.
sometimes the whole gift idea doesn't help. You,
What
you know,
kind of
if I was, I would haunt the living shit out of people just because I know it scares you. That would be me.
No.
I would take all their left shoes and hide them.
that's diabolical.
Mandy. Oh, so if that happens, man, I'd be like, oh, Mandy.
Yes. She got us good.
Where's my left shoe, Mandy? There you go, Adriana. If your left shoe misses and Mandy's no longer around, then you can say, oh, Mandy.
You know, it is crazy because yes, we're talking about folklore, right, and all these stories, but there's a lot of videos of aliens. You know, I know it's not the same, but
More
there's
than
videos
ever.
of lights and stuff that's going on, and there's some that could easily be disproven. There's some that cannot. There's some that can be explained by the government. Some that cannot. So, like at the same time, it goes with like videos of like catching ghosts or spirits. Or you know what? Another thing that's a Mexican culture, the little gnomes. Like little gnomes. That's another thing that's a Mexican thing. Like
Not in my Mexican culture. My parents never talked about gnomes. That's
I
weird.
hate
Maybe
gnomes.
it's a I mean, not dialect, but maybe it's certain parts of Mexico because I don't know about the whole gnomes thing. Hey, haunted in Texas before MegaCon last year. Scared the shit out of me.
Ooh.
Thank you, Efren. I
he's talking
appreciate
about
that.
you.
I know. What a nice
Let me-
guy. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
I think, believe it or not, I think the unknown is more scary than if I was to see an alien come right after him. I'm like, well, fuck, you're right there, right? But hearing voices, seeing things, having things move. My wife, before she met me, when she was married to her first husband, lived in a house where she woke up and all the drawers, cabinets. Yeah, Adriana, it's Tammy.
Yeah.
They were all open in the kitchen. Every
In there.
single drawer.
No.
And she said that happened quite a few times. Hearing stuff. The refrigerator was moved out. Like not just drawers, but like out from the wall. So
Wow.
one day, as they were moving some stuff with the family friend, he said, "Oh, you guys are living here?" And he goes, they're like, "Yeah." He goes, "This used to be my grandparents' house. I used to come here when I was a kid. And my grandmother died right there."
Oh.
You're like,
Oh,
what do you
no.
mean? What do you mean? She's like, "No, really. I had no idea you guys moved into the house that I used to stay with my grandparents. And my grandmother died right in that area." And they're like, "Great." So right away, she's just like, one night, she's like, "Please, we just want to live here. If you could just leave us
Right.
alone." And it stopped.
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, we can share the space. Just leave us alone.
Exactly, that's what I think. Just they can do their thing. I just don't want to witness
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of malicious, there's the spirits that many people live with.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Dale.
Oh.
He's saying, go ahead.
Oh, okay.
So, there's spirits out there who are malicious, right? Demons, evil, as they would say. And then there's the ones who just let you know that I'm here,
Mhm.
right? The ones who are
Or
like,
they're
"It's
just
okay."
territorial, like this
They're
was my stuff.
territorial.
This is my stuff. Don't touch this.
Respect my house.
Yeah.
Right. I love this house. Respect it.
Yep.
And we'll be okay.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's why when we talked about earlier in the show, when you start doing construction, rearranging, it's almost as if you have to have their blessing to do
Yes.
this.
100%.
Sage in a house is always good. I always recommend if you move into a new house, actually for you, Dal, because I know you're moving.
If you don't know
Sage
what
that
you're
house.
doing,
I'm
girl,
going to an apartment. So that's how it's
you can trap
difficult.
something in, so be careful.
Right. The proper way to sage is to sage every corner and make sure that every single window is open
Yes.
and make sure that all the doors are open. So when you sage all the corners of the house
Mm-hmm.
and supposed to use a feather, but you don't necessarily have to, Um, and he's just you know, good energy, blah blah blah, and just allow anything that's negative to leave.
Leave.
You know, leave through the window, leave through the front door, and then you'll feel the
I've
house
done
will
that a
be
couple of times with
blessed.
faith. There's
A lot
also
of times you can feel it. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Del.
there's a curandera,
The
right?
curanderas, yeah.
So they're
Mhm.
like, what would we call them in English? Not witch doctors.
No, they're well,
Kind of.
they're
Kind of?
healers. They're healers.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So they'll like brush you with some sage, right? And then like a certain tree to rub you down. They massage your feet. Um,
Yeah.
what else? There's a lot of things that they grow. And honestly, after you're done, you feel like a big weight.
Lighter.
Lighter, yeah. It feels weird. It feels lighter. A big man, but I feel, you know, I can dance to my tippy toes in some kind of situation where.
Just a couple of weeks ago, we went to a harvest, like a harvest festival in Santa Fe, and there was people there who were waiting in line to get, you know, to buy a
That's awesome.
curandera.
Yeah.
And they do a tone, they do the bell, they do all the stuff
Cool.
and the smoke, you know.
The smoke, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's I now I didn't do it, but
Yeah.
You need
I
it.
probably should have. My wife's like, you should go wait in line because you know you still don't have a job. Well, thanks. You know, maybe they'll fucking
Well,
smoke
even
you into a
health
new job.
stuff too. Sometimes that helps with those things. You know,
It's-
I've been told.
Well, listen, all I know is there are so many places. Now we think we think we live in a place that's old, right? It's bullshit compared to Europe. And Adriana went to school there abroad for how many years were you in London?
Just one,
Okay.
but I definitely had experiences there.
Wow.
It's
What do you
just
got? What do you feel?
just like it was a sleep paralysis situation, and it was in the dorms. So I have no idea how old the building with the dorms was, but it was in Central, so it was
Wow.
like in the center of the city, and that's why I believe in angels, because I started praying when I felt this negative entity in my room, and when I started praying, then I like said like one of the archangels' names, and I heard a blinding like ring and like saw a blinding light, and it
Wow.
was like I was like so like shocked and scared by that experience too, and I felt like something came to protect me.
I love that.
Well, like I said, Europe is so old. So
Old world.
that I lost my baby sister in 1971. The night my mother passed, my sister came and sat on the edge of my bed and told me not to worry because it was her turn to take care of mom.
Oh, that makes me want to cry. Woo.
Wow, that's so...
What did you say, Del, before the show started? They said they're going to have some good stories.
Wow.
You know, sometimes being around a long time gives the experience of more things, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we know what we know on the short life that we live in, but imagine living more years. You have time, more time to experience more things, right? So I would think that did you visit any of the castles, Adriana, when you were there?
Yeah, I visited the palace in London. Yeah.
Wow.
And
Did
I
you
think
go to the like
Ireland.
tower? Oh,
The tower.
That's right.
Yeah, I did. And the one of the like underground, their subway, they call it the Tube. It was built where a morgue used to be, and like that is the most haunted part because it's like built on top of all of those like bodies in like or not a morgue. It was like a mass grave or something. And
Okay,
Like
yeah.
catacombs? Like
Yeah, and it was like underground.
Yeah, the
That's
famous
crazy.
catacombs you're thinking about are in.
But they
Edinburgh.
have some in London, I've heard. So
Oh yeah, I would
Something
think so.
similar.
You know, the cool thing about living in Europe is that for us it's like, oh, I want to go to Ireland and do the thing. How long's the train ride to Ireland from London, Adriana's like,
It's
That
I don't
wasn't
think
very
it's
much.
that long, but it's like an hour
yeah,
or something like that.
Oh,
that's what I'm
I
saying. You
forgot
could just,
that.
It's like
oh,
$20
I'm gonna go have,
to go
yeah,
get
I'm
a
gonna go have lunch in France, and
Texas
you know,
is
come.
bigger than most of Britain, so like I'm used to
Mhm.
like driving the whole state, right? It takes about
Wow.
8 9 hours. So
Yeah.
I know.
it's
Yeah, it's like going from one state to the other. So you can drive. It would probably be like a few more hours, but like flying is super short. But they actually like sell tickets for cheap, like their budget airline. Here you have to pay so much for even a domestic flight. So they're
That's
lucky over there.
I feel like I would want to go on a
Yeah.
train over there. To do
Oh,
the
that'd be
area.
so fun.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are nice.
That's right, Billy.
More
The
bones
bones
in
of
Paris,
the
so-
in Paris catacombs are staggering. Yeah, they still
Yeah.
find.
More
bones.
skulls than the entire population of Paris at the time they were built.
That's
It's kooky, right? I mean,
Right.
I can't I can't fathom these are living, breathing people who
Mhm.
never had a proper burial.
That's
To have
so
your
sad.
bones just scattered and found, and
Yeah.
how can you have rest?
I know.
Mhm.
Right? That's the whole thing. No wonder why things are being haunted. There's a couple reasons why places are haunted. Oh, I have a story for you for the hospital.
Ooh.
it just hit me. One of the nurses, one of the doctor's assistant, who I think was the secretary, who worked with him for God knows so many years. And I was fixing their computer once, and I said, "You guys ever hear about this place being haunted?" Now, mind you, this is not the actual hospital. This is a building adjacent. And she said, as a matter of fact, one of the janitors here was on the phone with a buddy of his. She saw a woman come in and was saying, "I'm so late. I'm running so late." And she got in the elevator, and so the guy was on the phone. He goes, "Hey, you wouldn't believe who I just saw right now. It's Mrs. whatever, Mrs. Jones.
Mhm.
I haven't seen her in a while." And the guy said, "What are you talking about? Didn't you hear? She died in the carport. They found her body in the car like weeks ago."
Oh wow.
So what happens is, just because you either passed or had trauma in a place, yes, but a lot of spirits will also haunt a place where they feel the most comfortable.
Mhm.
It was their home, right?
Mhm.
For this woman, being at work is her home. If they don't have anywhere else,
Mhm.
people will haunt. That's why the word haunt, right? The old haunts, my old place,
Mhm.
is they will haunt a place where they feel the most at ease,
Mhm.
and that's her home. So it's not, someone doesn't necessarily have to pass in a home or pass in a building, but if they love that place so much, that's where they go visit. A lot of that,
Mhm.
now what that was probably residual, meaning
Mhm.
it happens a lot. It's not intellectual.
Mhm.
So a lot of people get those confused. Residual haunting compared to intelligent haunting. Intelligent is, what is your name?
Yeah.
Mhm.
My name is Frank. Residual is seeing the same action happening at 3 a.m. every morning and never acting to you or responding to you.
Almost like a burned memory or something.
It's like a burned memory. And any place that's close to water, because water is a current, very strong current, it builds up energy.
Mhm.
If you ever noticed, you will hear people talk about how their light bulbs will constantly go out because they take up a lot of energy to either manifest or to build up the energy to either speak or to close a door or to turn off a light. You'll hear stories. I had a friend of mine who his baby who was in the crib was straight up talking to someone, and the light in the bedroom was turning off and on, like flickering. He thought it was his dad that never got to meet his son, his grandson, because the baby was just like blah 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 blah, no, just talking to this person, and the light was flickering and turned off.
I had that kind of experience when I was really, really little. Apparently, I knew. Oh, I think Dell. Okay, yeah.
So
Yeah, I
yeah,
had to go.
I was just giving you a heads up. I need to take off. My kids are going to go sleep right now, and I need to wake up early in the morning tomorrow.
Okay,
But
that's fine.
I try to be on
we'll
as long as possible. Like I'm an hour and a half was my limit, and I want to get killed
Okay.
over here and be my own little wife. Is dangerous. So I gotta go. I thank you very much for letting me be on. Well, obviously, whatever. I don't know what I'm saying. Diana, thank you very much for being on. Good nice meeting you. I hope we can get you on in the future. But I am gone. Bye, Mandy. Bye, Caesar. Enjoy and continue with the stories. I'll be in the comment section.
All right, pal. Thanks, man. Have a good night. But ghost stories are those things that you talk about. Now, I will say one thing: there's nothing to me more relaxing than being at a campfire
Oh, I agree.
in the forest, right? The good old campfire ghost stories.
Mhm.
Yeah, right, Billy. Dale's like, thank you for letting me be on my own show.
Yeah.
That's kind of funny, yeah. But there's something about a good ghost story from people that you know.
Yeah.
You can always repeat stories that you hear on TV, watch TV, read books, and all that stuff. But it's something when you repeat a story from someone who's reputable, someone who wouldn't bullshit you,
Mhm.
from someone that you know. And like I said with my cousin, he's my cousin. He has no reason to make up shit. There's no reason. He didn't go to the newspapers and make money and sell his story.
Right.
No, I mean it's you speak about what you see. Same thing with you, Mandy. Like the stories you've been saying, or Adriana, the stories, you have no reason to make that shit up because there's no gain for you.
If it could be the opposite, it actually it makes you look like a crazy person, depending who's listening. So
It's funny you say that. There are so many people who keep their stories to themselves because they are afraid to be perceived like something, like they're crazy. But I think one good thing about this generation that we live in, which I'm not a big fan of it, but I'm here. They're more acceptable to this kind of behavior.
there's a lot more openness.
There's more openness. Now, Adriana, would you agree with me that this generation is kind of like, oh, by all means, you're not going to be judged. I 100% believe you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This isn't the days of we're going to put her in the cuckoo room, and give her a lobotomy,
Right?
or shock therapy. No. Now it's like, because the more you explain your story or tell your story, there's more people who come out and say,
Yeah.
hey, I had that same experience in that house, or I had the same experience here, and stuff like that, and it becomes acceptable.
Yeah.
You have to think lobotomies were happening up until like the early 80s. That's not that long ago. So
think about that.
That's wild that there was consequences of opening your mouth.
Believe it or not, I think the last execution by guillotine was in the early 70s in France.
That's wild.
So Mrs. Z says, years ago when my son was a little boy, he had a special friend, an imaginary friend. It wasn't until I took him to my great aunt's house that we found out his friend was my great uncle who died.
Oh,
Never dismiss, right?
that's a happier ending because I've heard I never had one, but I've heard imaginary friends can turn out to be kind of scary. So that's a really nice.
In World War I, and this has been gone for years.
Wow.
People think the world is flat nowadays. Yeah, no shit.
Yeah.
I that same house where I told you guys about the pulling of the hair and the murder that occurred in the front. Her son, my friend's son, when he was very young, I'm talking enough to form words and sentences,
Mhm.
He looked at his grandmother once, and he were in the kitchen, and his grandmother had, you know how those people would collect plates,
Oh yeah.
you know, and up in the kitchen wall, like on the ledge in the very top. Don't ever do
Yeah.
that in LA, people. We have earthquakes there. Um, he all of a sudden just said, "Do you remember when I gave that to you?"
Oh.
And she's like, "Huh?" She goes, "Yeah, I remember I gave that to you."
Wow.
Who was given to her by her mother, who's no longer around.
Wow.
This child always would say things that he has no idea or would have a reason or knowledge of saying. You know, so it's almost like the whole past lives.
Yeah.
I believe in past lives.
I do too.
I
I was
believe
raised
it's
kind of not to, but as I've gotten older, things make more and more sense to me. With
I'll
it being
I'll tell
a
you a quick story. Years when I was before I married Voldemort. Oh, there we go. What did Dell say? When my kids say they see my dad, it's crazy. He died in 2015. Well, there you go,
Wow,
Dell. Oh, or dreams
Yeah,
of dead relatives. Yeah, yeah.
sure.
that's wild.
I once went to Adriana. I went to the Psychic Eye in Torrance,
Oh, I love that place.
and
Yeah.
so I went to the Psychic Eye. The Psychic Eye is like, for people who don't know, it's like what would you call it? Like
Just a spiritual shop.
Oh,
a
cool.
spiritual shop. You can find incense and sage and books on maybe the occult, or they have
Crystals,
just crystals and fairies and
all the stuff.
statues,
Yeah.
all the good stuff. And they would have you could pay per hour to talk to fortune tellers,
Oh,
and 30 minutes or even an hour, depends how much you want to pay. And these
Mhm.
are reputable.
hmm
So she was telling me about my future and what have you, right? And I couldn't remember. I could never remember that. But I'll tell you what I do remember. She asked me, she goes, "Would you like to know about your past lives?" And I said,
yes.
I said, "Sure." So she took my hand and she starts laughing. And I said, "What's so funny?" And she goes, "You were this mammoth of a man, and you were a soldier. You were a guard of a king. You were a personal guard, and you were massive." Because I'm laughing because how big you are.
Wow.
And I've noticed in your past life, what I'm seeing is that each time you're getting smaller. She
Interesting.
goes, "Because then I see you as a blacksmith, still a big man, but not as big as the guard.
hmm
And then I see you as this, and then I see you there. And as your years going by, you're getting smaller. I'm 6'1",
Wow.
right?" And she's like, and your next one, you're probably going to be smaller. And I started thinking, and she goes, "You were a knight, you were this, you were a guard." It's funny because later on, once again, you start thinking about things after the fact. And I thought to myself, that's kind of weird, because I was always interested in medieval. I was interested in
Mhm.
swords. I was always interested in reenactments and battles and fantasy and all that stuff.
It probably
And
felt familiar to you.
it felt very familiar. So when she's saying, I'm
Mhm.
like, because as a young child, and I never grew out of it. I always liked Knights of the Round Table. I always liked
Interesting.
chivalry and all that stuff. And then when she said that, I was like thinking to myself, I'm like, wonder if it's really true.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I mean, how many of us? I'm assuming you guys obviously believe in past lives.
Mhm.
I think I was a pirate. I'm not joking. There's something about being on a boat and water, and I don't know. It's very familiar to me, and it's wild.
That's interesting. Yeah, you reminded me of this show I watched on YouTube, and it's like, what is it called? Who Was I? And it's like have you heard of it? It's this hypnosis guy who puts people under hypnosis, starts asking them about like to describe their past lives, and then he goes and digs and finds like census records or something because he asks them, "What is your name? Like, are you married? Do you have children? How did you die?" And then he goes and finds actual documentation. Yeah, facts.
Interesting.
I love that.
Wow.
Yeah,
See,
It's
I
so
kind of
cool.
wish these shows were on YouTube and more mainstream because,
I know.
but once again, that takes someone with an open mind to want to watch,
Mhm.
right? Because the same reason why there's a lot of people out there who don't watch ghost stories or I'm sorry, ghost shows or investigations because they're like, come on, man, that is just
That's Murat. He doesn't believe in any of that
he doesn't
stuff.
believe it, right? He doesn't believe in all that
No.
stuff. Now, my question would be to Murat is that if something literally happened in front of his face, he would probably say,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
the only way I would believe.
Yeah.
Huh?
No, and I've posed that question, and I think there's probably a level still of almost denial that would kick in, whether it's before or after, or during and after, I mean, he might reason it away somehow, because sometimes when you open that door, it can be, that could be overwhelming, I would imagine. If you've gone most of your life not believing, and then all of a sudden something happens.
Yeah. I think to me, the hardest thing is to try to turn a skeptic into a believer.
For sure. I don't
like you
even
said,
bother.
like you said, there needs to be so much evidence that you
Yes.
cannot refute.
Yep.
You know, the old I just saw a candle levitate from in front of my face and smash against the wall.
Right.
And what they'll do is that they won't tell anybody because for that reason, they're going to go like, come on, man.
I've seen that.
No, really, I saw that. And you can't
Yeah.
really look around and go, well, I was the only one who saw it. So I can't say ask Joe because he was right behind me. So you kind of keep it to yourself. So it kind of makes me wonder how many good ghost stories are being untold.
I know.
for the fear of being looked at as a loon, right? For the fear of being listen, always knew you were a little off, and you just absolutely proved my point.
I think if you lined up 100 people, there's gonna be a very high percentage of people, whether they label it a ghost story, that have had some sort of experience that made them go, I can't explain that. There's no logic or rationality behind this.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
and I think because of that, it makes people kind of relate to each other more.
You know, dead relatives seems to be the number one thing that people would see, but then again, they would just play it off as I had a dream.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
I must have been dreaming. But what if it happened at 2:00 in the afternoon as you're doing the dishes?
Exactly. Then you're sleepwalking.
Were you sleeping then?
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't make any sense. So there are things that yes, we can go. Well, yeah, the house is settling.
Right.
Oh, there's that bird in the neighborhood that sounds like it's being murdered. That makes that sound.
Yeah.
You know, there are things. I mean, here in New Mexico, we hear coyotes all the time.
Oh.
And I remember the very first time I heard them, I could have sworn to Odin. It sounded like the street over me had a car passing by with 14 teenage girls sticking out their head out the window screaming.
That's an accurate description.
I honestly thought that's what it was. And then I heard it again at distance. I'm like, oh, they're coyotes.
What is it?
And but if you're not paying attention, like I just heard like screaming in the distance. No, it's coyotes. Oh, okay. But if no one's there to tell you it's coyotes, your first thought is, oh my gosh, I'm hearing like voices of girls being murdered off in the mountains. And then someone goes, no, they're coyotes. Oh, thank God.
I have a good little story that could piggyback on that one. If we have time.
No, of course.
So I
Go,
don't
go.
know. Okay.
No, it's fine. You're fine.
So speaking of noises and witnesses, because if it happens to you alone, you're just either going to get scared or you're going to go, what was that? And then move on, it's going to be one or the other. But if there's a room full of people and everyone hears the exact same thing, then it makes it a lot more scary. So our house, ironically, even though it was the haunted house, my mom always was the mom who had like the safe house. All the teenagers, everyone was always at our house. It was open door policy. They could go and hang out even if we weren't home, that kind of house. She'd be like, go eat whatever you want, go take a nap, like do your thing. And my mom only worked about 5 minutes away from the house, so she was always pretty close. But after school, my brother and I each had like 2 friends. My grandfather lived right next door, so he'd pop over and come say hi. So it was a full living room of people. We were watching TV, and all of a sudden we heard my mom's voice. We heard the keys. She had this massive thing of keys, so they jingled everywhere she went. We heard the keys. We heard the door open. We heard her say hello in the way that she always did walking in the house. And we all said, hey. And then nothing happened. And there was a window that faced the outside of the house where she would pull up. And then we looked and we're like, she's not home. And then she came home a half an hour later, did the exact same thing. And all of us are looking at each other, just going, what's happening right now?
So that's the whole witness thing, right? It wasn't just you. It's a room.
No, it was my grandfather. It was different kids who all had very different walks of life, different cultures that they grew up with. And everyone heard the exact same thing. So when she actually walked into the house, we were all pretty freaked out and told her what happened, and nobody could reason it.
Doppelgangers or mimicking is no bueno.
Yeah. That was a constant in our house too.
Was that the old house, the same old house?
Yeah, that was that happened pretty frequently. It started with me first. Initially it kind of isolated everybody, and because we didn't grow up with ghosts, we didn't even have a word really to say that's what was happening. And so each family member had instances where weird things happened to them. Of course, no one said anything. And then years later, one day after there was several witnesses with lots of events, big events that would happen, we all finally just started sharing. We're like, well, this happened to me and this happened to me. And then it was just this very really interesting like story being unfolded. And by the time we were all kind of on the same page, I was going to church heavily at the time. That's when everything ramped up, which was really interesting. And we did have pastors and people come to bless the house, and they all said, you need to leave. There's a lot of darkness in this house.
Is that why you guys left?
Eventually, yeah. It became violent. So it was started off slow, like a slow build.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually became pretty violent, and it had a heavy influence on certain family members in the house. They would leave, they would be calm, they would be happy, they would come in, and all of a sudden they would just go into a rage, walk out of the house, be totally fine again. So
the ones that freak me out are the ones that follow you home.
Ooh, I don't like that.
Yeah,
I don't like that.
Right? Those are the dangerous ones where you see. I would never visit a place if I heard stories of, when I went there,
right?
And after I came home, weird things started happening to me at the house once I left.
No, thank you.
I would not go there because attachments are no bueno. Now, there are people out there who have hauntings. not because of where they live, it's because of
Right.
what is attached to them, right?
100%.
It's like, what are the odds that you lived in 5 different places and each place is haunted?
Right.
No, it's you start looking at the common denominator and it's you. Something
Exactly.
has attached to yourself. Then you start doing digging, you're going, well, when I used to go to the cemetery and I went to, and I was like, well, there you
Right.
go. And you fucked around and you found out. Kind of,
Yeah.
And I
you
think
know,
sometimes too, when you're young, you open doors that you really can't close spiritually.
I have friends who fucked with Ouija boards and things
Oof.
happened.
Yeah, no, thank
Uh,
you, but yes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, don't you've never messed with that, right, Roger?
No, my
Ouija
mom was
board?
always telling me since I was a little kid, never use that. Don't
Yeah.
use that. I never use that. I refuse. If they have it at a party, I leave, and that's what I always.
Same.
Yeah, I honestly, I've never gone to a party like, hey, everybody, let's contact the dead, and it's like,
I have, and it is. I was like, I'm out. I will watch a horror movie. I will fall asleep to horror podcasts. Someone brings a Ouija board, and I'm out.
and it's so weird that it was marketed as
Right?
a board game for it's like learn to contact the spirits by Parker Brothers. You
Right?
know, and it's just and they if you ever see an old commercial for it, and you can find them on
Mhm.
YouTube, if you look for an old commercial for a advertising for Ouija, uh they're like, oh, yeah. Am I going to marry my boyfriend? Yes. Oh, that's good. That's great. And it's like, what? You know, I could just see a demon salivating, going, oh.
Easy
Please by all means contact your dead, great grandfather, because
Right.
I need to go. It's not a good idea, people. And the last thing, a couple things you've heard: don't ever burn one, ever. Don't ever burn a Ouija.
I've seen people try to burn one, and it didn't burn.
Don't burn a Ouija. I had a friend of ours, believe it or not, the
Scared.
same woman who lived in that house.
Oh no.
Her sister, they had a Ouija board that was like almost authentic, like carved out of wood.
no.
One of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. You don't mess around. This is my PSA for my friends out there. Don't play with Ouija boards, no matter if it does cost $10.99. You just don't.
Even
There's
if
a couple
you
things you don't want to do.
Make
make
one
your own,
by
'cause-
yourself.
yes.
Yeah. Don't do that.
Because there are so many. Yes. Now this is the other thing too. I'm not a big. I don't know how to put this. Certain things I will believe, and certain things I'm very skeptical. And one of the things that I'm very skeptical in are possessions.
That's understandable.
That's tough because
Yeah.
I consider myself a pretty good actor, and I could act as if I'm possessed like there's no tomorrow.
Mhm.
And to the untrained eye, my gosh, that guy's possessed, especially when you have everyone part of it. They're holding me down, and I'm speaking Latin, and I'm changing my voices and all that. I do voiceovers. I can change my voice whenever I want.
Mhm.
I could talk at any given time. I could just change my voice at any given time.
But how
That's
does
why
like a 6-year-old do that? That's the one thing when they have
Well,
no
that's what I'm
previous
saying.
experience.
Now, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. There's certain things that you're like, well, how do you explain the child levitating? And you're going, God, I want to believe that.
I know.
I do, but there's so many hoaxes, especially now with technology that we have. There's so many things
Yeah.
that could be fake, so many things. But when you see, even when you watch a video that's black and white, and you're going, yeah, how good of that person? I don't know. It's very tough for me
Yeah.
because
It
it
makes
can
sense.
be hoaxed,
For sure.
right? But then someone will say, well, if you don't believe that, then if you hear a voice on a tape recorder being played back, why would you
Mhm.
believe that?
Mhm.
That could be hoaxed. Then you start going down the rabbit hole of,
Well, some of our beliefs are arbitrary, let's be honest, as humans. Like, you can believe in aliens and not believe in unicorns. Like, or maybe you believe in both. That's allowed too.
Well, listen, people, we hit that mark, and just like that, we 2 hours right down the tubes. Adriana, once we get off, don't leave. Just hang out for a little bit.
Okay.
Just because we talk a little bit in the green room after. I just want to thank everybody
This is so
for
fun.
showing up. This is Halloween. We could, and this is sort of without preparation. If we were to do this again, it doesn't have to be in October. If we were to do this again, I would love to have more and more people in the comments, because I know for a fact you guys have stories.
They
And
have
do what
great
Billy
stories.
and by the way, Billy, thank you so much for jumping in and telling us your story, because
Yeah,
I gotta tell you, that one gave me the creeps.
It was so
You
scary.
know, that one worked.
Yeah.
That one did the job, my friend. So thank you for that. But I want to thank Mandy as always, and Adriana. Thank you so much for jumping on last minute and sharing your story. Angela at Prairie Meadows, and all you folks, sleep well tonight. There's so many stories. There's so many unheard stories that we have yet to touch that I would love to do again.
Man, I would
And
love
to-
to just sit in a room with our viewers and just listen to their stories.
so many good ones.
Yeah,
So many good ones.
there truly are. And there's, like I said, there's so many stories that have yet to be unheard
Yeah.
because of the fear of being seen as crazy. And trust me, everyone, we're all crazy. So might as well just share your story about being crazy, right?
There's
So
going to be
it's
more
perfectly
people than not who are going to relate in some way.
Right. So I want to thank everyone, and I appreciate all you guys for turning out, being part of our little story here, and thanks. Other than that, you can catch me on the Instagrams doing voiceovers and all that good stuff. Yeah, that's me. That's right. Look at us. We're all individuals. We're like the Brady Bunch.
Yeah.
We could you can see me on Instagram if you need a voiceover for any of your reels, by all means. Now that I have this new mic, I'm a little bit more clear, and you could hear me speak any way I want. See, I'm possessed now. So thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Adriana, Andy, stick around. I want to talk to you guys after. Good night, everybody, and catch us next week. We're going to have Aaron Bartley. We're going to have Ryan Kincaid. We're going to have the guys from Comic Capsule. We're going to do the live auction. We're going to do they're going to do the drawing for a auction for money to donate to Aaron's church, who's going to go to Asheville, who's still picking up the pieces, or North Carolina. And once again, our prayers and thoughts are for Florida, who I guess they're going to get another hurricane coming, from what I understand.
Oh, man.
Yeah, these guys don't get a break. And talk about haunted states.
Right.
We didn't even talk about Florida. Florida's fucked up when it comes to all that supernatural stuff. And Georgia, in the South, Savannah, one of the most haunted cities. We didn't even talk about cities. Next time we'll talk about that. Maybe next time we'll gather stories from different states and talk about the lore in those places. But other than that, thank you so much. Have a good night, and we'll see you guys later.
Bye, guys.
I want to end the stream, people. End it. Hi. I can't seem to end it. I can't seem to end it. We're all still here. Hi. Good thing I didn't
I'm glad I didn't say anything embarrassing.
Really? I can't seem to end this. This is weird.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
Stop.
we're gonna go forever here. Wait a minute.